I once got lost hiking up a mountain until I saw a shepherd. I asked him how far up are we, and he answered, the final bosses of every Souls game. That's how I realized I already knew the answer. We were at the peak. Joe Biden. Today we take on a mammoth task, ranking the final bosses of Soulsborne family. That's Demon Souls, Dark Souls, all entries and DLCs, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring, plus Lies of P. I know it's not a FromSoft game, but whatever, I like it. We are including DLC finals and alternate ending bosses, because what's a final boss list without a few curveballs? All breakdown lore, mechanics, difficulty, presentation, and that emotional gut punch factor. God bless Lord of Cinder, he has it all. Who are Kiln, they plone RN. Sorry. Never even try to search Soulsborne characters fan art. So you're going to see diabolical things. Expect analysis, hot takes, and the usual bad jokes. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me your most frustrating death in the comments. We'll cry together. Aldia, scholar of the first sin. Yeah, for the first time, Demon Souls is not the first one we mentioned. Don't worry though, it's the next one. Aldia is a weird place to start. By the way, some people might roast me up because of this selection, but hear me out, these are all great and are partially my own opinion. He's the optional final test tucked behind a scholar of the first sin's secrets. Lore-wise, Aldia is a scientist who studied undeath and the course. If you triggered his fight, you know the setup. Surreal environment, dialogue that makes your brain itch, and a boss that's more philosophical than punishing. He's the brother of King Vendrick and a reclusive scholar obsessed with breaking the course of the undead. Mechanics are mixed bag. He telegraphs big area sorceries and shape shifts in ways that are visually interesting but not the most precise. Tight combat on this list, because Aldia is optional and a bit of a lore exposition fight more than a mechanical gauntlet. He sits at 18. Great concept, somewhat underwhelming final boss or test. At number 17 we have King Aland. Actually the true one, the end game one, the final boss of Demon Souls. I swear every time that I'm reading these lines, my hearts are pounding more because I know so many people are not going to agree with this one either. You might argue with this one, and I really agree with your argument, but for me this boss is more important than its mechanic and how easy it is to beat it. The lore gravitates me toward this character. He's a proud ruler of Boletaria. Alan's lust for power led him to awaken the old one. Eventually his power culminates in a grotesque, slug-like form, a pitiful, writhing shell of the once great king. Symbolically, Alan represents both the apex of ambition and its inevitable fall, the mighty reduced to regret and flesh. Mergo's Veterinars does one thing exceptionally well: atmosphere. Sometimes you fight the nurse mainly by sound and esteem. It's unsettling and forces you to rely on senses more than visuals. She's fast, but because her identity is optional and her mechanics can feel gimmicky to some, she sits at 16. Still one of the creepiest encounters and the one your heart remembers at 3 AM. This is one of the Bloodborne bosses. This is the other one. Moon Presence is the cosmic end of Bloodborne, the true ending boss if you refuse Gehrman. Yeah, the agolmatophilia guy. What the hell? Agolmatophilia means the guy who has affections for doll, and for me it's a little bit more sus. You know what I'm saying? Like how can someone be like, he's a bloody pervert? As a great one, the Moon Presence embodies cosmic horror. Mechanically it's interesting, but fair warning, the Moon Presence is arguably easier than Gehrman in practice. I mean, yeah, some people argue with that, but for me, I think Gehrman is far harder than this guy. That puts it mid-table. It's conceptually massive, but not necessarily the hardest test. Nashandra, Dark Souls 2's final queen. She's the initial canonical final boss in the standard ending. Nashandra lore is narrative. She pushes the player into linking the cycles of power. Combat-wise, she teleports and casts quick dark attacks. She's not the most mechanically complex final boss, but her place in Dark Souls 2's story gives her weight. We slot her mid-chart for narrative importance and straightforward fight design. Manus is the Dark Souls abyssal horror from the Arturius DLC, and the son of a bitch who did this to my brother, Arturius. You asshole. This is a fight drenched in bleak desperation. Dark magic, erratic teleports, and a lot more. Manus is fast, punishing, and absolutely thematic. He's the father of the abyss and his arena is a nightmare sea of shadow. Manus is so important, learning his tales and punishing mistake is everything. He's durable, deadly, and earns his spot as a mid-high classic. Simon is an interesting mix of mad scientist and failed god. He has two major forms, armored then awakened, glowing, larger, and psychotic. His challenge comes from transformation and raw damage. Practically, he's not the final boss of the game, but for me he is. He's here because he's a great fight for the game's design, but again, not as universally iconic as FromSoftware's heavy hitters. I mean, Lies of P fans might not agree with me, but you know what, it's subjective. Power resides where man believe it resides. So yeah, you can believe that power resides in this bowl of a boss. Did it make any sense? I don't think it, but what did I just say? Alekino is the blood artist from Lies of P's Overture DLC. For fans of puppet fueled gothic spectacle, this boss is a showstopper. Huge stage, big personality, violent choreography. He mixes aggressive combos, making the arena feel alive and theatrical. This is a top tier boss for style and theme, and as you know, most of the final bosses here are really great and masterpiece, but some for me are better in my mind. This one's a two-partner. Emma the Gentle Blade followed by Ishin the Sword Saint. The Shura ending in Sekiro. Emma is a twist. A familiar NPC becomes your opponent, wielding precise mortal blade strikes. The Ishin arrives in his prime, a total nightmare. If the player chooses the Shura path, Sekiro becomes a demon of war, betraying Kiro. Emma the healer and Ishin resurrected once more stand against the player to protect Ashina. Lore-wise, this is Sekiro's darkest ending. Even so, not darker than Straight. Straight is even darker than Abyss. Why the fuck why did you make this guy so black? The player is consumed by bloodlust and Ishina is destroyed in flames. Ishin here is not noble sword saint but a tragic necessity, fighting his own descendants, corrupted pupil. Together, they are theatrical and punishing. Emma's presence attacks your expectations. Ishin's swordplay is sang of Sekiro mastery. Lighting moves, spear faces, and bullet attacks. This duo ranks high for shock value and technical demand. Even in the canonical run, Ishin shows up solo as the true final apex. Promised Consort Radon is the climactic god boss of Elden Ring, Shadow of the Tree. Thought at the summit of Enenium. I don't know if I'm saying the thing right, but he's there as the DLC's final encounter. With his femboy. We have a lot of femboys here actually. This version is explicitly the DLC's ending boss. Different contexts and moveset from the Star Scourge Radon fight in the base game, and in my opinion both are great, and definitely the other one is more difficult than the Star Scourge one. Players face a brutal, aggressive Radon in two main phases. He's faster and more punishing than his base game counterpart, with long combos, heavy reach, and phase-specific attacks that reward perfect timing and pattern memorization. The fight is widely regarded as one of the most demanding DLC finals, and probably at this timeline the hardest boss of every Souls game, especially when it launched, because it received later balance adjustments from the developers following community feedback. Some people, or maybe more than some people actually, thought the boss was kinda unfair, but again, this is one of the best final bosses of Souls game, even though it is a DLC final encounter. The Orphan of Kaz, often just called Kaz or Kazum, is the beating heart of Bloodborne, the old hunters. If you want a fight that makes your hands sweat, this is the one. Lighting, longs, brutal combos, and almost feral aggression. Do not try to fight this guy with headphones on. The child of the Great One Kaz, born from her rotting corpse, washed upon the shore of the fishing hamlet. The orphan embodies wrath, grief, and abandonment, wielding its placenta as a weapon. The hamlet's villagers cursed the hunters, and the orphan's existence is the ultimate punishment, a living nightmare. Its shrieks and feral rage reflect both innocence and horror, making it one of the most disturbing bosses in the series. Don't fight with this guy. Each phase raises the stakes. First wild and unpredictable, second a lightning cyclone of brutality. The tragedy of the fishing hamlet and Kaz's broken child gives the battle heft. Rated high for difficulty and emotional weight and atmosphere. I loved this game's DLC atmosphere and fishing hamlets. There is something about Bloodborne that always fascinates me, and fishing hamlets and in general the Old Hunter DLC is one of those things. I don't even know what it is. Maybe the atmosphere, maybe the nostalgia, but I think FromSoft just did something very different than any other game in this game, and especially with the final boss of the DLC, the Kaz. Gehrman is Bloodborne's canonical final boss for the standard ending, and a dull lover, the first hunter simp. He's old, sorrowful, fast as lightning when he fights, and absolutely devastating. There's an extra layer. After you beat Gehrman, the moon presence might appear depending on your actions. Founder of the Hunter's Workshop and the first to make a pact with the Great Ones. Bound by the moon presence to oversee the hunter's dream, Gehrman longs only for release. If the player refuses his mercy, he fights with scythe and trick weapons, embodying everything the hunter has learned. Gehrman is both mentor and prisoner. His death is bittersweet, a liberation for him and perhaps a curse for you. Gehrman uses graceful, hunter-style strikes, and the fight is a ballet that demands timing and aggressive offense. We rank him high for poetry, the heartbreaking lure of the hunter's dream, and genuinely thrilling combat. Also, he's a weirdo, like it made a doll out of one person he loved. I'm talking about Lady Maria, and he did some dirty stuff with the doll. I mean, you couldn't blame him. Here as in the hunter's dream, may do something with your brain that you might not have the capacity to understand. But 100% Gehrman knows what it feels like to be there alone, and yeah. Gwyn is Dark Souls' original Lord of Cinder. Meeting him in the Kiln is like facing the ghost of an entire saga. He's slowed and hollowed and has very good daughters, but his attacks are still lethal. The mighty god who defeated the dragons and ushered in the Age of Fire. To prolong that age, he sacrificed himself, linking the first flame, burning his very soul. By the time the player meets him, he's a husk, mindless, desperate, his divine power long gone. Gwyn symbolizes the tragedy of clinging to the past, unable to let the world move on. And also, my man is truly evil. The man is really evil. Gwyn's second phase is aggressive. Furious lungs and unpredictable leaps, symbolically standing against Gwyn, forces you to decide the fate of the first flame. His essential franchise lore, and despite not being the hardest mechanical fight what? He's ranked high for weight and atmosphere. Also, a lot of people just don't like this boss fight, but again, this is not about really the difficulty, it's morely about the weight of atmosphere and lore. Sister Friday in Ashes of Ariandel is one of the most intricate DLC finals. 3 phases, shifting tactics and a dramatic environment. Phase 1, fast scythe dances. Phase 2, a monstrous father skies the threat. Phase 3, Friday returns black flame enhanced and utterly ruthless. Elders of the Sable Church Sisters, Friday abandoned Londo and joined the Painted World. She seeks to end the cycle of fire entirely, preserving the world in cold stagnation. Why do people in Dark Souls don't get the mix of things? Like, why do you want always cold and not mix of both of things? Like, the other one just wants fire, this one just wants cold. Why the hell not the mix of both? Her three-phase fight mirrors her layered nature, deceptive, holy, and finally consumed by black flame. Lore-wise, she's a traitor, a heretic, but also a believer in her own twisted salvation. The fight is a test in learning patterns, patience, and turning punishment into opportunities. It's gorgeous, tragic, and each successful parry feels earned. Top 5 for sheer mechanical variety and atmosphere and difficulty. Sister Friday is probably the longest run for me to beat in any Souls game. Elden Ring finally comes as a double-header, Radagon, then the Elden Beast. It's not just a boss, it's a divine judgment. Radagon is raw, lighting fast and brutally precise. Elden Beast is cosmic, bizarre and beautiful. Really beautiful. Radagon, consort of Marika, or Marika herself, is both her husband and her other half. They are two beings sharing one divine body. His fight represents humanity's struggle against divinity itself, a broken god clinging to order. After him comes the Elden Beast, the physical embodiment of the greater will, a cosmic force of law. The finale is the clash between mortal tarnished and the godly order of the universe itself. Radagon feels like a climactic night duel. Elden Beast feels like fighting a living piece of the cosmos, homing stars, sweeping beams, and surreal geometry. Together, they make a final that feels both personal and cosmic. That blend lands them at number 4. And also, should I talk about the OST of the final boss of Elden Ring? Maybe the second, for me, best theme of every Souls game out there. The Soul of Cinder is Dark Souls 3's meta final, a personification of every lord who linked the flame. By the way, this is an argument that some people don't agree with this, but I think this is right. The fight is a masterclass in variety. It changes styles, weapon sets, magic, and even mimics Gwyn at the end. The collective memory of all who linked the flame fuse into one champion. The Soul of Cinder wields countless weapons and fighting styles, representing every hero who sacrificed themselves for fire. In the second phase, it echoes Gwyn, complete with his theme, showing that even gods became fuel for the cycle. The fight symbolizes Dark Souls itself, the endless passing of fire from one soul to the next. It's not just a mechanical test, it's the series, thematic nexus, cycle, sacrifice, and repetition. The transformation forces you to adapt, human or pyromancer, melee or caster. The atmosphere of this boss is just masterpiece, especially at this point in the boss fight. When I heard Gwyn's theme, I just wanted to cry, and I did actually. I think I did. I think I cried. Wow, I forgot about this part. Wow. Gale, the final climactic end of Dark Souls 3 Ringed City DLC, is devastating. Probably this boss is really the last boss of every Dark Souls game. His music, his final cries, his desperate attacks. This fight reads like a requiem for the entire Dark Souls cycle. A nameless knight who served as Felionor's guardian, seeking the Dark Souls of men. He devours pygmy lords until he himself becomes a beast of ash and blood. Gale is not a god or king, just a man who carried the weight of humanity's fate. His fight is both epic and tragic. He falls not as villain but as a vassal, completing his quest with his own destruction. He did a lot in this franchise, and at Ringed City, this is the end of Dark Souls universe. Like, he basically waited for you for more than a life. He waited for the end of the time. This is how sad and weird his life is. 3 escalating phases, culminating in a broken, blood-stained husk that still claws at you. The narrative payoff, the Dark Soul, Gale's Surge, the hunting music is one of the most satisfying and sorrowful finals FromSoftware ever produced. He is second because he feels like ending a trilogy, ending a world or a story. Topping the list, Ishin, the Sword Saint from Sekiro. Why Ishin? I mean, you know why. I mean, are we going to talk about this? Because he embodies what Sekiro asks of you. Absolute mastery, rhythm, precision. This fight is a brutal symphony of perfect timing. Ishin appears at multiple points in Sekiro's story, but the true peak is his final prime form. Multi-face, mixing spear, sword and lighting with attack chains that punish the faintest mistake. He's not cheap, he's honest. If you ever felt your heartbeat sink to the boss music as you beat a perfect deflect, you know what I mean. Narratively, Ishin represents the old order and the cycle of violence that Sekiro explores. Defeating him is not just winning a duel, it's breaking a system. The payoff is mechanical mastery, thematic triumph, a perfect final boss recipe. Ishin is the ultimate test, the final exam, the game that gives you the possibility to be worthy. For sheer difficulty, spectacle and narrative closure, he earns the first title. And that's it, that's our list. 18-1, agree? Hate my picks? Tell me below, which boss would you push higher or banish from the top 10? If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe and ring the bell. If you want a follow-up, I don't know if I can do that, but I can do a boss difficulty ladder or most emotional boss theme. Until next time, die with honor and keep learning from your devs. May the flames guide your way.